Hey, sir. Ladies and gentlemen of the United States and others in the world court of public opinion, welcome to this live broadcast with political prisoner Ammon Bundy, father of 6, small business owner, cowboy, and definitely a friend to humanity. He joins us live from his maximum security cell in Pahrump, Nevada, to answer your questions. Ammon, the floor is yours.
Well, how are you doing, Jared?
I'm okay. Yeah, well, we're okay because we're outside and we haven't been caught yet, but you are in a maximum security cell in the bowels of the Nevada Southern Detention Center. You've been there for 18 months. For those that aren't familiar with this story, well, we'll get you caught up later, but no bail, no trial. Here you sit, my friend. But you're here to answer our questions.
Yeah, I've been here for, like I said, 18 months. I have not had opportunity to, hold or even see face-to-face my children and my wife, and that's been probably one of the most difficult things for me.
I can't imagine. And
so, but we're working through it. We know that the Lord's with us, and we're finding strength in that, and that's been a blessing to us. We feel His Spirit every day and keeping us going, and so we believe that the outcome of this is going to be very positive. So,
God bless you, sir. Thank you.
Now, I know we had a list of questions. Were you going to read those off?
Yes. Well, we have them in order. You agreed to answer the public's questions. So the first one comes from Larry. He writes, Ammon, I know you are a good and honest man, and I have a lot of respect for you. I get criticism from those of our own faith saying that I and you are on the road to apostasy because we are going against our faith and not supporting church leadership. He wanted you to respond to that.
Yeah, so, well, just first of all, there's a lot of people in the church, and there's a lot of people with their own opinions. And so that makes it where there's a lot of different views. But the church's responsibility, this would be my response to that, and that is it's not the church's responsibility to defend liberty. It is each individual's responsibility to preserve it. Just like it is not the government's duty to educate our children, it is the parents' duty to ensure the education and life preparations of their own child. The church's responsibility and purpose is to invite all to come into Christ. This is done by teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ and providing saving ordinances such as baptism through the priesthood. Before we came to this life, our loving Heavenly Father
from an inmate facility.
Our loving Heavenly Father covenanted with each one of us, His children, that before He would judge us for our actions in this life, we would have the opportunity to hear the pure gospel of Jesus Christ, accept it or reject it, and if accepted, receive the saving ordinance of the priesthood. The church is very active in doing this work all over the world. If liberty is lost, it will hinder this work. How can one choose the gospel of Jesus Christ if they cannot be allowed to live it? Individual members should be actively engaged in defending personal liberty before the church is hindered in its responsibility. Now, let me give you an example, a real-life example of something that might bring a little insight to our present circumstance. My great-great-grandfather on my grandmother's side went on a mission to teach the gospel of Jesus Christ in Europe. He and several others were arrested and suffered 9 months, 5 days in a cold European prison. What was his crime? Teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ without a license. Government officials had not given him their permission to teach the gospel and therefore punished him as a criminal. And by the way, as soon as he got out, he and others went right back to teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ without a license. And they did this for 3 years before returning home to their family and their wives and children. And he lived in southern Utah.
That's an amazing story.
yeah, it's pretty neat. But I mean, what was happening there is exactly what's happening here, and we're seeing much, a similar attack in our country now in massive ways. And if individual members do not fulfill their duty in preserving the free exercise of conscience, including the right to worship, we will see the past in the future.
Yep.
What will members? Yeah, I mean, that's what's happening. We will see what happened. What's already happened, we will see happen in this country. And
Yep.
so I have a kind of a tough question for members of the church. And that is what, and I ask this question to bring to light the direction that we are going. What will members of the church do when our beloved apostles are imprisoned for refusing to perform gay marriages in our temples? And how will this affect temple work? And so personally, I would rather battle.
From an inmate facility.
So personally, I would rather battle these issues of rights on the Bundy Ranch than in the celestial rooms of our temples.
And for those who aren't familiar with that, Mormons have seen this before. It's called Kirtland, Ohio, Nauvoo, Illinois, and the Missouri persecutions. Your family ended up in Utah because they got run out of the United States.
That is true, and we, but we're not alone. I mean, we have seen, happen all over the world, and it's happening today. And the encroachments are happening in our country now. And it's the individual's responsibility to stand up for these things and not the church's. The church has a different responsibility, a different duty, and they're actually doing it quite well. So, many listening now are not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I truly love this church. And some of this lingo may not be familiar to you. But please understand that freedom to worship how, where, and what we may is in grave danger. And so my response to you, Larry, is to keep moving forward and to continue on. The gospel of Jesus Christ had to be restored in a free land and will thrive in no other way, in no other. The fight for liberty is God's fight, and when a man stands for freedom, he stands with God.
Thank you.
I hope that answered that question.
You bet. Deborah from Ohio, do you think we should be practicing civil disobedience over everything, including federal income tax, that was unconstitutional by original intent?
Okay. Was there a first part of that question where she said that she wonders if the Constitution, let me get there, is the Constitution even worth fighting for? I think that was part of her question somewhere in that.
She wanted to know if civil disobedience should be mainstream over every aspect of our life, and she cited the federal income tax as another encroachment.
Well, let me respond to I will answer that, but let me respond to is the Constitution worth fighting for, and then I'll answer the civil disobedience part of that after that. So my response to that is, unless we want to live under a different form of government other than the constitutional republic, then we must fight for the principles in the Constitution. And I know of no better social system found in the annals of time. No system has brought more freedom to more people than the system found in the Constitution for the United States of America. It is designed to spread freedom throughout the world, and it has. We are in a loss of freedom here in the United States, not because the Constitution has failed us, but because we have failed to abide by its principles, and especially in enforcing the principles of limitations placed upon our leaders. And Brutus in 1787 says this well in a statement as he's addressing the people of New York. And I'd like to read that statement for you if I could. And again, this is in 1887. And it says, he says, quote, it was because one part exercised fraud, oppression, and violence on the other that men came together and united in the protection of rights of the individuals, weak or strong, selecting leaders to organize such protection, giving them power to use the resources and force of the many in the defense of individuals' liberty and happiness. But leaders have the same propensity as other men. They are likely to use the power with which they are vested for private purposes, and to the injury and oppression of those over whom they are placed. It is therefore as proper that bounds should be set to their authority. This principle, which seems so evidently founded in reason and nature of things, is confirmed by universal experience. Those who have governed have been found in all ages ever active to enlarge their powers and abridge the public liberty. This has induced the people in all countries where any sense of freedom remains to fix barriers against the encroachment of their leaders. So clear a point is this that I cannot help suspect that persons who attempt to persuade people that such reservations are less necessary are willfully endeavoring to deceive and to lead you into an absolute state of desolation. Well, I enjoy that quote. He lays it out very clearly that it's the nature of man, including our leaders, to abuse the power that's given them for private purposes.
Yes,
and,
yes. And the Constitution,
seen a lot of that.
More and more every day. The Constitution was supposed to prevent that from happening, but it's only as good as the people who are willing to honor it.
That's right. That quote was when they were, before the Constitution was ratified, but it was drafted, and so they were discussing,
it's from an inmate facility.
The benefits of it and how it would check and balance and limit leaders, and so that was part of his statement. And so I go on addressing Deborah's question, I guess, and so I would just say, for the sake of everything that is good, we must defend, enforce, and reinstitute the limiting principles found in the Constitution. They're also found in the Bible and in the Magna Carta, which were all used to draft the Constitution. And when it comes to civil disobedience, which I don't know I agree with that term, but because I think civil disobedience means something else, but the most peaceful way for people to begin this, meaning to begin enforcing and defending and reinstituting the founding principles of the Constitution, is through mass noncompliance of laws, regulations, and policies that are not in pursuance of the Constitution. Simply do not comply. And it is not civil disobedience when you are not willing to obey unlawful demands from people in government who have usurped power. This is called civil order. And this is defending freedom and is one of the few ways successful in restoring liberty without violence. We have some good examples of that. We have, the women in this country restored their right to vote this way. The black community gained more civil equality this way. The medieval Christians restored their right to translate, read, and possess the Bible in this way. And I believe that this is one of the many things Christ was teaching us when he healed the sick on the Sabbath day, which was against the law. Or when he picked grain on the day of the Lord, which was also against the law.
And when he cleaned house at the temple, that was against the law, I'm sure, somewhere, some way, somehow.
Well, the point, being, without going into too much detail, is that we do not have an obligation to comply to laws, regulations, and policies that the people did not give our leaders to make. And the easy way to combat those and to enforce the limitations of the Constitution is simply do not comply to them. But it's much easier to do when you have people that are with you and beside you, and the more the merrier. So,
absolutely. Joydy writes, Joydy, do you agree that to make a stand against the tyranny of our government, you have to be willing to lay it all down on the line, even your own life, like Lavoy Finicum?
All right, Joydy, my response is to maintain rights, one must claim them, use them, and be willing to defend them. How far one is willing to defend his rights is a personal choice that only that person can make. However, if a person is not willing to claim their right, letting others know that that right is theirs, if that person does not continually beneficially use their rights, or if they are not willing to defend their rights when threatened, then those rights will be claimed and used by someone else who is willing to defend them. This claim, use, and defend is the natural law of maintaining rights, and it cannot be changed. Remember, there are many ways to defend your rights other than violence, but death is the ultimate defense of rights. And with that said, our friend Lavoy was not murdered defending his own rights. He was murdered giving his friends the opportunity to live so they would be able to defend their rights and teach others to do the same. What a tremendous, selfless sacrifice of love.
All you guys weren't up there for your own benefit. No, but none of you guys were up there for your own benefit.
This call is from an inmate facility.
Well,
okay.
Anyway, that's my...
well said.
Joydy's first question. I think she has another one.
Yeah, the second part of this is, what do you think about calling law enforcement officers out for not honoring their oath, which they took when they were sworn in? They all need to be held accountable, and the good ones need to be appreciated for the sacrifices they make for liberty. Please address this.
My response is going to be a little general maybe, but I also want to just point out some facts and some observations. First, the majority of the people who join the police forces today do so because they're either, one, from a generational police family, or two, seeking the thrill of force, or three, they could not find a better producing job. A small minority go into the police force motivated correctly to protect and serve. And now we have many of the generational police families are leaving the police force.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Because of what it has become.
Okay, Ammon, you're going to call us back. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Stick with us. 3 minutes later, Ammon Bundy will be with you live again on Facebook here from the Nevada Southern Detention Center to continue to answer your questions that you have submitted to him. Watch the slideshow on the Facebook page. Pay attention, share it, like it, call your brother or friend into the room. The world needs to see this. America needs to see this. What happens to these men will set a precedent that will be used against all of us. The innocent need to be protected. These guys have always been about protecting the innocent. And now you need to help them out.
Something had to be done. How could we pass these gross and growing deteriorations of rights and liberties over to our children? What would be left by the time they are raising their children? Feeling a providential urge, a love for my neighbors, and a great concern for my country, I used the public connections made during the Bundy Ranch to inform everyone I could about the abuses to the Ammon family and how adverse federal agencies have taken over and destroyed the economy in Harney County. Many, including myself, began to petition the county and state representatives to do their duty
with a
and
prepaid
protect the
collect
liberties
call
and
from
pursuit of happiness
Ammon
of
Bundy.
the people in the county. All of this fell on deaf ears. The elected representatives did not even respond to one of our emails. We know they received thousands. We learned later that the FBI, an agency of the executive branch, contacted the sheriff, state and county representatives, and directed them not to respond to the people's petitions. This lack of response created an extreme environment of frustration with the people. No matter what the people did, even after filing an official notice of redress of grievance, the representatives would not respond. It is my belief that if the FBI would have stayed out of it, elected representatives would have responded and taken a lead. This would have ended the mass frustration, and the people would have gotten behind their representatives with major support, satisfying any need for the people to act on their own.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Ammon Bundy is on the line answering your questions. Why he's still in confinement after 18 months without a speedy trial, which he did request over a year ago, and not just him, many others. You say, since you've been there at the Nevada Southern Detention Center, there are all kinds of people like you. They just aren't known by most of the country.
There are a tremendous amount of people that are in here that definitely should not be. And I'm in the high end here, and there are definitely those in here that should be here. But I'm just amazed at the actual majority that should not be in these places.
Well, we've seen it even in recent weeks. Sam Gerard, the Amish salve maker that was put in jail for 6 years. Jerry DeLemus got 8 years. He was out there at your ranch. All kinds of people go away every day. And it's this New Mexican prison. It says it's going to close if the community doesn't come up with 300 new people to put in the bunks. So there you go. It's a human trafficking. It's modern day slavery.
It definitely is. It's amazing that it's become this industry that employs many, many people and brings a lot of power and influence for many others. Here we are.
Yes, interesting. I was just talking to a doctor last night, and his dad became a DEA agent after he got out of the Marine Corps, and I asked him, does he really believe in the war on drugs? And he says no. It was just a job. It's what he knew coming out of the Marine Corps. He went to work for the government and spent 20 years kicking indoors, and that's what he knew, so that's what he did. And anyway, son did not fought. He became a doctor. He didn't do what his dad did.
He left the family business and went into another, huh?
Yeah, something that saves lives instead of taking them. How are you doing? How are you doing, Ammon Bundy? A few people have written in and they want to know how you are holding up.
I'm fine, actually. I feel strong. There's a lot of ups and downs in here. It's just the nature of it. Everybody goes through it. Sometimes you feel strong and know that you're just going to be okay. And other days it's a little further away and a little darker. But I'm okay. I'm feeling fine, and I do believe that in the end that this is going to be something that was very beneficial to freedom and to liberty and to our fellow man. And I'm excited for that. I just don't know how it's going to happen and do not know when it's going to happen. So, but I'm okay.
Good. Have you been following, I know you have, to the extent that you can, this courtroom, Judge Gloria Navarro's courtroom down in Las Vegas? I've been there 3 times, and it's completely corrupt. It's not real. Nothing like this has probably ever been seen before. At least nobody's been talking about it. It's sidebars. Anybody? I didn't even know what this was until we started.
This from an inmate facility.
Right now, it looks like the prosecution and the judge and maybe even some of the defense lawyers are all in on it together.
Well, let me. There's a question actually from Sherry that asked that. What I think about the injustices that are going on in the trial now. And so let me just address that. Let me give my response to Sherry. And I think that, at least my view of it, remember, I'm locked in a dark box out here, so I don't get to see what exactly is going on. But I do know, and I've seen thousands of official government documents, videos, and radio transcripts that are in the discovery of this case. And it is plain to me to see that why Judge Navarro is acting the way she is and why she has sealed the discovery, not allowing the media and the public to review it. Very obvious to me. And let me just give you a little details of this. Well, first of all, this discovery is clear evidence that government officials on many levels conspired to do harm to my family in a national plot to gain unlimited control of the water, land, and minerals of this country. And furthermore, they plan to use excessive show of force on the Bundy family, knowing it would cause a, quote, flashpoint, unquote, that would work to their benefit by putting fear in anyone who might oppose them. This is all documented. Also, the discovery is full of despicable acts of the lower-level federal agents in the desire to harm the peaceful people. Body cams caught audio and federal agents on April 12th saying things like, shoot her in the effing forehead, and then laughing with each other. And then after Sheriff Tom Roberts de-escalated the situation and backed the federal agents away, you see and hear federal agents talking. One says, we should have sent somebody up there and smashed them. Yeah, kill them all. Another agent is disgusted by the de-escalation and says, not one shot fired. All effing mouth. And these are just a few of what is in the discovery and why Judge Navarro is misusing her power to keep the truth out of the courtroom and out of the hands of the media. And it's my belief that if the jury was to see a portion, even just a portion of this, the weight of their conscience would scream to release these men and let them go back to their wives and children, back to their families.
Oh, yeah. This sidebar thing is amazing. When somebody asked a question about whether or not the militia was illegal in Nevada, immediately the prosecution said objection, and then the judge and the attorneys go in the back room. The jury's given a bowl of candy to eat, and for 10 minutes they're in the back room doing who knows what.
Well, the interesting thing is that is a direct violation of our right to a public trial. The purpose of a public trial, it's well documented what it is, what the purpose is, and that is to ensure that the public can keep an eye on the proceedings and make sure there is no corruption.
This call is from an inmate facility.
Or collusion. And obviously that's not being afforded. Also, every one of those people that go back there and deliberate, if you want to call that, are receiving a paycheck from the federal government, the very entity that is prosecuting us. And so the whole thing just stinks to me.
It does. And I guess the jury can't ask questions anymore. They have to submit them in writing, and the judge may or may not address them. And when she does, nobody knows. I hope they're picking up on this stuff.
I'm sure they are. I mean, obviously they'd hoped that the jury question options were going to benefit them, and as soon as they saw that it was not benefiting them, then they did away with it. And, it's just so blatant. But that's the good thing about what's happening, though, is is the actions of the prosecutors and of the judge in particular are showing the American people the corruption that's been going on for many years. And to be honest with you, it's showing the corruption that these ranchers and loggers, miners, and many other land users have had to deal with for generations. And
this call is from an inmate facility.
Anyway, I still like my dad's way of explaining it. He says that going into a federal court, when the federal government is suing you or prosecuting you over land and policies, is like a man who beats up your wife and children, so you take him to court to get justice. And they say, all arise for the honorable judge. And in walks a man in a black robe, and it's the very man that beat up your wife and children.
Yep. And they have unlimited funds. They can make the money out of nothing if they need to fight you.
Yeah, and then they throw us in these holes and give us, almost nothing to use in our defense, and keep us away from, even the ability to communicate with our attorneys. I haven't had a meeting with my attorney for almost all year, and these are the type of things that they do. But I will say that Judge Navarro, people need to understand that this is much, she is part of a much larger social conspiracy.
Agreed.
And those who oppose this agenda, she cannot let go unpunished. That's her job. That's what her piece in the conspiracy is to make sure that if anybody comes up into her courtroom that oppose their agenda, that she takes care of them. And to people like Judge Navarro, it is much more than political. It's actually theological. And so, we will not see relief from Judge Navarro because we oppose everything that she believes in. And she understands, actually, our position better than most of us understand them ourselves. And so we cannot expect anything different. And but again, the jury is our hope, and we are seeing this unfold. And I remember in Oregon, I believe it was a reporter that said this about Judge Brown up there, and the reporter said, Judge Brown cheated and still lost.
Mm-hmm. That was a true statement.
Yep.
That was a true statement.
It's even, it appears that it's happening even worse down here. I can't see it, but the reports I'm getting, it's happening a lot worse. But remember, Judge Navarro, she cannot allow them to make a defense. She cannot allow them to truly bring in the issues of jurisdiction and of the federal government's plans and abuses to the American people, to the Bundy family. You cannot allow those things to come in because it will expose them too much. And if the jury even sees a little piece of it, they will acquit these men. And so she's doing her job well. And as far as her role in preserving their power and taking away from the people. So.
Yes. Like Oregon, the Constitution is not allowed. Do you have a closing statement for the audience today?
Well, I don't know. We didn't really get a chance to answer Joydy's last question. I don't know how much time we have about the law enforcement. I do feel it's important because I know it's been an issue and kind of split us as supporters, I guess, if you want, so I don't know if I got a chance to address that or not. Yeah.
America's listening. Go ahead.
So, as I was pointing out some of the facts about those who join the law enforcement, there's the generational families, and there's those that seeking thrill of force, and then to those that could not find a better job, and then a small minority that go into the force motivated correctly to protect and to serve. And now we see many of the generational families
from an inmate facility
are leaving the police force because of what it has become. And this leaves us with a vast amount of officers of the law seeking the thrill of applying force on their fellow man or using their office for a paycheck. And, this is not a good combination. As one will do almost anything for a paycheck, and the other is violent. And then couple this with the federal training they receive that teaches officers to escalate force rather than de-escalate, and you have a ticking time bomb. Now, I have several family members and actually close friends who I really love and enjoy that are serving in either a police force or sheriff deputies. And I pray for their safety, for the safety of their lives, and I also pray for the safety of their souls. And I really mean that. And especially those who have to work in these large cities. Because I personally cannot see how they can go through even one day without being mandated to violate a person's life, liberty, or property. And when we stand at the judgment seat and give an accounting for our actions in this life, the excuse that I did it because I worked for the government will not be acceptable. Because taking of life is taking of life, and taking of liberty is taking of liberty, and taking of property is taking of property. A lie is a lie.
And a robber is a robber, even if it's legal.
That's correct. There's no double standard when it comes to God. And God is no respecter of persons. And so, if a life is purposely taken for any reason other than defense of self or the innocent, it is murder. If liberty is taken for any reason other than the protection of the innocent, it is kidnapping. And if property is taken for any other reason than restoring the property to the owner, then it is theft. And it does not matter if you are a government officer or not. God's laws apply equally to all of his children. We are all equally accountable no matter what our status or position. And it's interesting, if you read through the Constitution, you'll see that the Founding Fathers outlawed titles of nobility. And this was the reason why. There was not supposed to be any group of people that had a different set of laws and a different set of standards in our societies. And our founders were trying to establish that by outlawing titles of nobility. Now, with that said, my heart does go out to those officers who valiantly joined and truly desired to serve and protect their fellow man.
Yes. And, God judges on the intents of the heart.
Yeah, we can't isolate them. We can't forget them. We can't go against them. We have to support them. And because, think about this. Well, first of all, they're surrounded by tremendous wickedness from both sides. But if they were to leave the force, then what good would be left? And who would curb the violence and the corruption? And who would stand for the innocent? But I will say this, on that same hand, if you stay, meaning if those people that went in the force for the right reason,
you have 1 minute remaining.
If they do not if they do not stand for the innocent when they're in the force, then what good are they? And if they go today, if they go day to day and watch their fellow officers and commanders abuse and destroy the people's rights and say nothing, then they have become salt that has lost its savor and good for nothing.
Well said. Well said. Ammon Bundy will be calling us back with his closing statement. We're going to talk to him again on Monday. Join us here at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Call your neighbor, call your sheriff. We were just talking about inviting the local law enforcement community to be part of the solution here. And it's hard to do because it's a foreign idea to them. They've run their whole career believing they were doing the right thing. Like Saul of Tarsus, he thought he was doing the right thing, enforcing the law. But if you're a Christian, the Lord showed up and said, Saul, why persecutest thou me? No, what you're doing is not lawful. Anyway, he changed his ways, but we've got to have the local police on our side. We have to. And it's their job. They took an oath, but they've never learned about it. They went to public school like everybody else.
Hello, this is an operator with a prepaid collect call from
Ammon Bundy.
Now let me go on. Towards the end of 2015, many became aware of another ranching family in Oregon, the Hammonds, where the father, Dwight, 74, and the son, Stephen, 43, had been put in prison for resisting federal agencies of the executive branch in taking their lands. The abuse to this family over 2 decades is terrible. Federal agencies of the executive branch came together and have taken their water rights, destroyed much of their ranch, restricted use of private property and access to it. Through the courts, they have taken hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines, forced them to sign that they would only sell their ranch to the BLM, and put them in prison the second time for doing maintenance on their ranch without a permit from the Bureau of Land Management. All of this was done inside the state of Oregon on private property or land that federal agencies do not have constituted authority to administrate. These same tactics are being used to take established property rights all over the United States. The EPA, an agency of the executive branch, is using the same playbook in the eastern states. Before federal agencies diminished ranching and destroyed logging in Harney County, where the Hammonds live, the county had the highest family incomes in the state of Oregon. Now families in Harney County struggle with the lowest incomes in the state. Over the last 30 years, Harney County has consistently declined in incomes, population, and jobs because of the federal government's overtake of the land and resources. The best hope of employment anyone has now in Harney County is working for a federal agency of the executive branch, the BLM, Forest Service, or Fish and Wildlife. Government employment tallies at 58% of Harney County income. This percent does not include those on government assistance. Together, approximately 70% of Harney County residents depend on the government for their living. The remaining minority, the producers, are choking from forceful regulation and live in fear of retaliation if they speak out. Those that do speak out against the federal agencies, like the Hammond, are targeted, demonized, their lands are taken, they are prosecuted and thrown in prison. What has happened to us, the Hammonds, and the people of Harney County is a type and a shadow of what is happening to our entire country. We must stop federal agencies of the executive branch from taking over and controlling the producing class. Federal agents have shown they are willing to destroy entire state and county.
Welcome back. We are live with Ammon Bundy from the Nevada Southern Detention Center. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to this political prisoner. He represents so many others locked up with him. Ammon, you were talking about supporting righteousness wherever you find it.
Well, let me, in the law enforcement, it's a difficult thing, a balance, but how ungrateful would I be if I was not I guess, supportive or thankful or grateful for what Deputy Tom Roberts did on April 12th of 2014. I mean, he de-escalated, he backed down the federal agents and saved a lot of people's lives. And, I believe by his mannerism, the way he worked with us, the way that he handled himself, I believe that he is an individual that joined law enforcement for the right reason. I also know that there was others. I believe that my cousin, Shannon Kelly, did a very good service to us and helped in any way he could, even though he was put in a very difficult situation. I believe that Mark McEwen and Brett Empey and several others acted as they should. And I know there's been tremendous pressure on them since, and I hope that they, one, know that we're appreciative, but also continue to stand for the people and not just for, their organization or for the system or even for their brothers in blue. They didn't join the police force or the sheriff's deputy or whatever the force might be. They didn't join it so that they can protect each other.
No.
They joined it and the people pay them, and they were hired to protect the people. And I find it absolutely disturbing whenever there is a police shooting or any type of violence by the police. I'm not naive. I know that they have to do some of it for their own protection and for the protection of the innocent. But when they're doing it for their, for any other reason, it's just disgusting to me. And also, they were hired to protect the people's life, liberty, and property. And so whenever a life is taken, whenever liberty is taken, or whenever property is taken, then the police force has failed.
Yep.
And we know that's going to happen. We know that it's a crazy world out there, and that they're not going to succeed every time in preserving life and preserving liberty and preserving property. But when we see them just willingly over and over with every little excuse taking life and taking liberty, arresting people, and then taking
an inmate facility,
taking property with asset forfeitures to fund themselves. And I mean, when we start to see that stuff, which we're seeing all over, then it shows that the law enforcement are absolutely failing in their duty and responsibility to protect the people's life, their liberties, and their property.
They're turning into pirates.
They are. They're modern-day robbers. Unfortunately, they're being used as tools for the bureaucrats, who are the true modern-day robbers. And but we do have to be mindful. We can't just forget those that are trying to do what is right, and those that are truly making a difference in those organizations. I mean, if we were to just abandon those people, and if they were to leave the force, we would have nothing but wickedness, nothing but just it would just be absolute tyranny. And so we have to fight for those officers that are truly trying to do what is right. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
I think that's all you can do.
I have a few, as far as the discovery goes, there's some pieces of it that I would like to point out that bring some light to their plans and how and what they were doing when they came at my family. And I don't know if you want to go over some of that stuff just to close up, and then we can kind of just finish from there and start again on Monday.
Absolutely.
So in the official preparation documents for the 2014 operation on the Bundy Ranch, I basically kind of bullet pointed several things, and I'll give you some quotes in the discovery. But So for 2 decades, the Bureau of Land Management has not been able to get, remember, these are in the preparing documents, so this is before the operation actually took place. So for 2 decades, the BLM was not able to get my father, Cliven Bundy, to act violent or to violently react, and so that's one point. So they literally for 2 decades they documented every contact they had with my father, and they always said that he did not act violent, he did not react in the way that they thought he would, and that's been well documented. And there was different things such as there's different things that they did to try to get him to react, and he would not react violently. And the BLM does then furthermore, the BLM does not know how he would react. And quote, if he's pressed into a corner and faced with having to defend himself, his family, his property, and home. So they were probing him to try to see how he would react.
All this is in the discovery that is sealed.
Yeah, and when I say quote, I'm actually reading from it. Yes, and this is a seal. So going on, the BLM does not know what, quote, Bundy's threshold or precise trigger point is that would elicit a violent response. And remember, some of this is clear going back into the early 90s.
Can you explain to the audience how you got this information?
Well, I have it because I'm a defendant, and I have a full discovery. And I will verbally continue to expose this discovery, and that's just what I'll do. I'm going to do it, and until they make it so I can't. And these are the things that we're finding. So I'll go on. So anyway, let me reemphasize that the BLM does not know, in quote, Bundy's threshold or precise trigger point that would elicit a violent response. So they're trying to figure out what is going to provoke Cliven Bundy, and they did this for many, many years, over a decade. And then going on for over 20 years, Bundy has been successful in thwarting physical action from the BLM in taking his property. Bundy has done this through legal injunctions.
This call is from an inmate facility.
And motions to the governor of Nevada and Clark County Sheriff. So they say that he's been successful in this. And therefore, the Bureau of Land Management will exhibit such a mass show of force upon Cliven and his supporters that they will either, quote, lose any semblance of hope, or they will, quote, react with physical force, unquote. BLM, FBI, and the U.S. attorneys understood that creating such a, quote, flashpoint, unquote, would potentially put law enforcement officers and Bundy supporters at risk, but is worth it to engage on their terms and force Bundy to, quote, react with physical violence, unquote. Further, once Bundy or his supporters have taken physical reaction against the BLM agents or operation, then further force will be justified by law enforcement.
They've been trying to set you guys up for 20 years. You're the last rancher standing in Clark County, Nevada. The only family left in the business. They've been,
that's correct.
Their whole study has been to get you guys gone, to put you exactly where you're at today, except people are watching.
Yeah, and my dad, if you go to his 1998 notice of or constructive notice of protection that he sent to the state, to the county sheriff, and to the other county representatives, my father says this, that they are provoking me to act, that they're going to push me into scenario where I will have to, in order to protect my life, the life of my family, I will have to react against them. And he calls us clear back, a decade and a half ago, and that's exactly what they were doing. So let me keep going here. The BLM, in their planning report, and remember this is way before they even came. In their report it says, quote, it is in our best interest to face off against the Bundy contingents, vice a caged and a reactive one, unquote. And all of this was documented as the official plan and distributed to the heads of agencies and unit commanders months before the operation against the Bundy family began.
This call is from an inmate facility.
This is organized crime.
I haven't even touched the surface of what we're finding.
Wow.
I mean, I think I quoted to you, let me get to it again, I'll quote it again, federal agents talking, with their body cams and so forth. And like I said, we have their direct audio. It's off the body cam of an individual standing right next to the other agent. And the agent says, speaking to a woman that I actually believe was my little wife on April 12th, saying, shoot her in the effing forehead. And then they laugh with each other. And then after it was de-escalated by Sheriff Tom Roberts. And I will say that I don't have the evidence that they were talking about my wife. I say that because of what they were discussing before and after.
That would give you a good reason.
Yeah. But I don't want to
speculate.
I don't want to speculate on such a thing. But the direct quote is, shoot her in the effing forehead. And then they laugh with each other.
Well, they had guns pointed at everybody, so that's not a hard sell.
No, I mean, like I say, this is evidence. This is not me speculating or saying something that, or interpreting an interpretation of something that, might have happened. This is a direct quote off the body cam. And then after Sheriff Roberts de-escalates the situation and backs the federal agents away, then you see and hear federal agents talking, and one says, we should have sent somebody up there and smashed them. Yeah, kill them all, he says. And then another, being disgusted about not being able to use force. He says, no, he's like disappointed, and he says, not one shot fired, all just effing mouth.
Well, they didn't get to use their army toys they got. They didn't get to use their army toys they got from the Pentagon. They were disappointed.
Yeah, they didn't get to use the force. They were promised that. They were actually, that whole team was handpicked, and put together from all over the western states. Very few of them from Nevada, and none of them from the Southern Nevada area.
No, that was by design.
They literally invaded our land. And then they tried to incite and provoke a violent reaction from us so that they can use force. And we didn't give them what they wanted. We never acted in violence. We never acted, in violence. We stood there in defense and said, hey, look, if you're going to kill us, then you kill us, but we are not leaving. We're going to stay here. These lands are our land. The Constitution protects these rights, and you are here unauthorized. And so that's what we did. And so even today, they have still never been able to provoke my dad to violence. And yet they're going to try to lie in the courtroom and say that what he did was violent. And it's a lie. It's a flat-out lie.
And if the jury's allowed to watch any number of videos that are out there, I know they're given instruction to not look on YouTube or do a Google search. That should be your first clue. If the government tells you not to read something, you should probably read it.
Yeah.
Hopefully they do.
It baffles me to think that you go into a supposed court of law and every opportunity to come to the truth is not given. In fact, most opportunities to understand the truth are kept away from the jury.
You have 1 minute remaining.
And it just shows the precarious situation that we're in as a people. But before I lose you, I do want to say that I know that the Lord is in charge of this. I know that we acted appropriately according to the Spirit and how it directed us, both at the Bundy Ranch and in Oregon. And because of that, I know that the outcome is going to be the way the Lord wants it. I don't know how or when, but this is going to be a piece that will give opportunity for us to have freedom, or more freedom in this country. And I'm grateful for everybody and for this opportunity to at least share some of my thoughts.
Thank you.
Is from an inmate facility.
Thank you, Ammon. We'll do it again on Monday. My name is Jared Green. Join us here, 2 p.m. Pacific time. Ammon will discuss Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, answer more of your questions. Why hasn't the Trump administration been involved, or have they? What's going on with cowboys, Mormons, and the Constitution? A lot of them showed up that day. Join us on Monday, 2 p.m. Pacific. Be here, tell your neighbor. Ask the sheriff's department if they'd like to come over to your house and watch it with you. We'll see you then.